The transport bay reeked of fear and disinfectant. Commander Jake Morrison watched through reinforced glass as the last evacuation shuttle from Sector 9 docked with the orbital station. 43 refugees stumbled out, their faces hollow from weeks of running from the Kresh invasion. He'd processed hundreds already. Always the same haunted eyes. Always the same desperate gratitude. "Final group cleared, Commander," Lieutenant Sophie Grant said beside him. "Except those two." Jake turned his attention to the corner of the bay where two figures huddled against the wall. Not human. Definitely not human. Their skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in rhythm with their breathing. 4 arms each. Large eyes that reflected the harsh station lights like mirrors. "Species?" Jake asked. "Varani." Their homeworld was glassed 3 months ago. "They're the only survivors we've found." Jake studied them. They couldn't have been more than adolescents by any species standard. The taller one wrapped all 4 arms around the smaller, who was shaking. "Why are they still here?" Sophie's jaw tightened. "Nobody wants them. 7 ships have refused. They say Varani bring bad luck, that the Kresh target anyone who shelters them. That's insane. Tell that to the captain of the Meridian. He threatened to space them if we tried to force boarding." Jake felt heat rise in his chest. The galaxy was burning. The Kresh were destroying everything in their path, and humans were out here playing the same old tribal games that nearly destroyed Earth centuries ago. How long have they been waiting? 16 hours. No food, no water. Protocol says if they're not claimed in 24 hours, they go to processing. Protocol meant a detention facility on some backwater moon. Might as well be a death sentence. Jake made his way down to the bay floor. The moment his boots clanged on the metal grating, both Varani flinched. The older one pushed the younger behind her, a gesture so universally protective it made Jake's throat tight. He stopped 3 meters away, held up both hands, empty, non-threatening. "I'm Commander Morrison. Do you understand, Standard?" The older Varani's bioluminescent patterns shifted from blue to cautious green. "Yes, we understand." "Good. What are your names?" She hesitated. Trust was clearly a luxury they could no longer afford. "I am Kira. This is my sister Neela." "Kira." "Neela." Jake nodded to each. "I'm not going to let them send you to processing." Kira's patterns flared red. "Surprise or disbelief? You would claim us." "Your kind has been, my kind has been stupid," Jake interrupted. "But not all of us. You are coming with me. My ship leaves in 2 hours. You will have quarters, food, and safety. Understood?" Neela peeked out from behind her sister. Her patterns were the palest yellow Jake had seen. "Why?" Kira's voice carried generations of betrayal. Jake met her mirrored eyes. "Because someone should." Jake's ship, the Defiant, was a retrofitted frigate that had seen better decades. The hull bore scars from a dozen encounters with Kresh raiders, and the engine core hummed with a persistent rattle that engineers swore was normal. It wasn't a glamorous posting, but Jake had hand-picked every member of his crew. They were the ones who still believed in something beyond survival. The airlock cycled open with a hiss. Kira and Neela stepped through, their bioluminescent patterns shifting nervously between blue and purple. The crew in the corridor stopped what they were doing. Jake felt the weight of their stares. "Problem, people?" he asked quietly. Chief Engineer Marcus Hunt was the first to move. The big man stepped forward, wiped grease from his hands, and extended one to Kira. "Welcome aboard. Name's Marcus. You need anything, you find me in engineering." The tension broke. Weapons Officer Christine Harper nodded a greeting. Navigator Paul Chen actually smiled. Within moments, the corridor resumed its controlled chaos of the ship, preparing for departure. "Your quarters are this way," Jake said, leading them down the narrow passageway. "They're small, but they're secure. Door locks from the inside. Nobody enters without your permission." He showed them to a converted storage bay he'd had cleared that morning. 2 bunks, a small table, a functioning bathroom. It wasn't much. Neela's patterns brightened to yellow-green as she touched one of the bunks. "This is ours? This is yours." Kira was less trusting. Her eyes scanned every corner, every vent, every potential threat. "What do you want from us, Commander?" Jake had expected the question. "Right now, I want you to eat something and rest. Beyond that, we'll figure it out. No one does something for nothing, then consider it payment in advance. When this war is over, when we're rebuilding, humanity is going to need friends. We've made enough enemies." An alarm shrieked through the ship. Jake's communicator crackled. "Commander to the bridge." Now he ran. Behind him he heard Kira's voice. "Stay here, Neela." The bridge was pure controlled panic. Christine stood at her station, fingers flying over controls. 4 Kresh fighters just dropped out of FTL. They're scanning us. "How did they find us?" Paul demanded. Jake's blood went cold. He turned to find Kira standing in the doorway, her patterns blazing pure white. "They're tracking us," she said, her voice hollow. "They've always been tracking us. Every Varani carries a biological marker. The Kresh engineered it into our species generations ago when they first enslaved us. We didn't know until it was too late." "You're saying you're a beacon?" Christine's hand moved toward her side arm. "Christine, stand down," Jake snapped. He turned to Kira. "Can it be removed?" "We've tried. The marker is woven into our cellular structure. Removing it would kill us." The Kresh fighters were closing, weapons charged. "So we run," Jake said. "Paul plotted jump to—" "They'll follow," Kira interrupted. "They'll always follow. That's why no one wants us. That's why we should have died with our world." Neela appeared behind her sister, patterns dim with fear. Jake's mind raced. The Kresh fighters were 30 seconds from firing range. His ship was outgunned, outmatched. Running would only delay the inevitable, unless— "Marcus, can you overload our shield emitters?" The engineer's voice came through the comm. "Sure, but it'll create a feedback pulse that'll fry every electrical system within." Oh, that's crazy. Can you do it? Give me 90 seconds. Christine, target their lead fighter. Make them think we're going to fight. Paul, bring us about, but keep the engines cold. I want them nice and close." "Commander, if this doesn't work," Christine began. "If this doesn't work, we were dead anyway. Kira, Neela, strap in. This is going to hurt." The Kresh fighters spread into attack formation, their weapons locked on. "Marcus?" Jake called. 60 seconds. The first fighter opened fire. The Defiant's shields flared, absorbing the impact. Barely. 30 seconds. "They're all within pulse range," Paul reported. Kira gripped Neela's hand. All 8 of their eyes were fixed on Jake. 10 seconds. "Commander, once I do this, we're dead in space. No power, no shields, nothing." The Kresh fighters circled like sharks. "Do it." The universe turned white. Darkness swallowed the Defiant. Emergency lights flickered on, casting blood-red shadows across the bridge. Jake's ears rang from the electromagnetic pulse that had torn through every system on the ship. Through the viewport, he watched the Kresh fighters tumble through space, their hulls dark and lifeless. "Report," he managed, his voice rough. "All 4 fighters dead," Christine said. Her console reduced to a blank screen. "But so are we. Everything's offline." Marcus's voice crackled through a backup comm line. Main power's fried. Life support is on reserves. We've got maybe 6 hours of air. Jake pushed himself up from his chair. His crew looked at him with expressions that ranged from trust to terror. In the corner, Kira and Neela huddled together, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing erratically. Marcus, what can you save? Engines are slag. Shields are gone. I can maybe get auxiliary power back online, but we're not going anywhere. Then we broadcast a distress signal and hope someone friendly picks it up before something unfriendly does. Commander, Paul said quietly, the pulse wiped our navigation data. We don't know where we are. And even if we did, broadcasting our position means broadcasting theirs. He nodded toward the Varani sisters. Kira stood, her movements sharp with anger. We told you we're poison. You should have left us on that station. Sit down, Jake said. We're going to get you all killed. I said sit down. Jake's voice carried the weight of command. Kira's patterns flared red, but she stayed standing. You want to feel sorry for yourself? Fine. Do it after we survive. Right now, I need information. How far can the creche detect your marker? We don't know exactly, at least several light years. So there could be more ships coming. Yes. Jake turned to Christine. How long until those fighters' backup notices they're missing? If they were on patrol, could be hours, could be minutes. The ship groaned around them. Somewhere in the lower decks, metal scraped against metal. We need a plan, Paul said. Jake stared at the dead creche fighters drifting past the viewport. 4 ships destroyed because he'd chosen mercy over pragmatism. The smart move would have been to leave Kira and Neela behind. The safe move, the move that would have kept his crew alive. But Jake had never been good at safe moves. Marcus, forget auxiliary power for now. Can you repurpose energy from life support to boost our short-range scanners? That'll cut our air down to maybe 4 hours. Do it. We need to know what's around us. 20 minutes later, the scanners flickered to life. Paul hunched over the display, his face illuminated by the dim screen. There, he said, pointing. Asteroid field, roughly 2 million kilometers out. Big one, lots of interference. Can we drift there? With maneuvering thrusters on backup power? Maybe. But it'll take everything we have left. Jake nodded. Christine, I need you in the armory. Strip power cells from every weapon we don't absolutely need. Marcus, use them to keep life support running while we drift. Paul, plot the most fuel-efficient course. What about them? Christine asked, her eyes on Kira and Neela. Jake met Kira's mirrored gaze. They're crew now, which means they help or they stay out of the way. Your choice. Kira's patterns shifted through several colors before settling on determined green. We help. What do you need? Can you survive in low oxygen longer than humans? Yes. Our species evolved on a planet with thin atmosphere. Good. You and Neela conserve the air. Slow your breathing. Stay calm. We're going to need every molecule of oxygen we can save. The Defiant lurched as maneuvering thrusters fired in short bursts. The ship began a slow tumble toward the distant asteroid field. Jake watched their air supply tick down on Marcus's portable monitor. 5 hours. 4.5. 4. Movement, Paul said suddenly. 3 contacts just dropped out of FTL. Creche signatures. They're scanning the debris field. Distance, 8 million kilometers and closing. How long until we reach the asteroids? 2 hours at current drift. And how long until they detect us? Paul's silence was answer enough. Neela made a sound like breaking glass. Kira wrapped her arms around her sister, whispering something in their native language. Jake's mind raced through possibilities. They were dead in space. No weapons, no shields, no way to run, the Kresh would find them, board them, and kill everyone aboard. Unless... Kira, Jake said, your marker, does it transmit constantly or in pulses? She looked up, patterns flickering with confusion. Pulses. Every few minutes. Can you feel it? Know when it's about to transmit? Yes. It causes pain. A burning sensation. Jake turned to Marcus. When she tells us the marker's about to pulse, can you vent atmosphere? Create a debris field that might mask our thermal signature? Maybe, but we'd lose air we can't spare. We're dead anyway if they find us. Kira, next time you feel the burning, you tell me. We're going to hide your signal in noise. Kira's patterns blazed white with something that might have been hope or might have been disbelief, that anyone would sacrifice so much for two alien girls nobody wanted. The Kresh patrol ships moved through space like predators tasting blood and water. Jake watched them on the flickering scanner, 3 bright dots converging on the debris field where his crew had fought and survived. Barely 2 million kilometers, Paul whispered. They're slowing down, scanning the fighter wreckage. Kira gasped. Her bioluminescent patterns flared sharp white. It's starting. The marker. 30 seconds. Marcus, stand by, Jake said. The engineer's voice came through tense. Vent port 3 ready. This is going to make a lot of noise, Commander.
That's the idea.
Make them think we're just debris caught in the drift. Kira, count it down. 20 seconds. Her voice shook. Neela gripped her sister's hand, patterns dim with fear. The bridge crew held their breath. Christine's hand rested on a dead weapons console, useless but ready. Paul's eyes never left the scanner. Outside the viewport, the asteroid field loomed closer, a maze of tumbling rock and ice that represented their only chance. 10 seconds, Kira said through gritted teeth. 5. Marcus now. Atmosphere screamed out of vent port 3. The Defiant shuddered as precious air exploded into space, freezing instantly into glittering crystals. The ship's tumble became erratic, spinning like wreckage caught in an explosion's wake. Kira cried out. The marker pulsed. Their sensors just spiked, Paul reported. They're turning toward us. No, wait. They're scanning the whole debris field. The vented atmosphere is scattering the signal. Jake exhaled. How long until the next pulse? 4 minutes, Kira said, her voice weak. Neela helped her sit, all 4 arms supporting her sister. Air supply? Jake asked. Marcus's answer made his stomach drop. 3 hours, maybe less. That vent cost us 3 hours. The Kresh were now 90 minutes away from their position. The asteroid field was still 40 minutes beyond reach. The math didn't work. It would never work. Commander, Christine said quietly, maybe we should consider alternatives, such as the Virani could take an escape pod, lead the Kresh away from us. Kira's patterns flashed crimson. We would do it to save you. Nobody's taking a pod, Jake snapped. We finish this together or not at all. Then we all die together, Christine shot back. Is that leadership? Sacrificing your entire crew for 2 aliens we just met? The bridge went silent. It was the question everyone had been thinking. The reasonable question. The logical question. Jake had never been good at reasonable either. You want to know what leadership is, Christine? It's deciding who we are when everything's falling apart. We can be the species that throws people out airlocks when they're inconvenient. Plenty of civilizations in this galaxy already do that. Or we can be something different. He looked at each crew member in turn. We're humanity. We're the ones who looked at an impossible universe and said, watch this. We're the species that shouldn't have survived our own wars, our own hate, our own stupidity, but we did. You know why? Because eventually, Enough of us decided to be better. Pretty speech, Christine said. Doesn't change our oxygen situation. Then we get creative. Pull those asteroids. Any with ice content? The navigator ran calculations on his dying console. Several. But we'd need to mine them, process the ice, extract the oxygen. We don't have power for any of that. What about explosive decompression? Crack open an ice asteroid, let the vapor freeze, collect it manually? Marcus laughed, a sound without humor. You want to go, Eva, in a dead ship, crack rocks with our bare hands, and hope we freeze enough water vapor before we suffocate? That's not creative, Commander. That's insane. You have a better idea? The engineer was quiet for a moment. Actually, that might work. If we use the emergency thruster packs to generate heat, we could melt surface ice, let it flash to vapor, then recapture it in our suit's emergency oxygen reservoirs. Transfer it back to the ship. How long would that buy us? Per trip, maybe an hour of air. But we'd need multiple trips, and the creche would be right on top of us by then. Kira stood suddenly. Her patterns shifted to a color Jake had never seen before. Deep violet edged with gold. There's another way. The marker. It can be disrupted. You said removing it would kill you? Not remove. Disrupt. If we enter a strong electromagnetic field, the marker's signal becomes unstable, unpredictable. We discovered this by accident during our war with the creche, when our ships fought near pulsar stars. The asteroids don't have electromagnetic fields, Paul said. No. Kira's eyes fixed on the viewport. But your ship's reactor core does. Even damaged, it still generates a field. If Neela and I stay close to it, our markers might scatter their signal enough that the creche can't pinpoint our location. Marcus's voice carried new urgency. The reactor compartment is flooded with radiation. Even with the core offline, you'd be dead in hours. We would survive longer than you would survive without air. Jake felt something twist in his chest. You're offering to lock yourselves in a radiation bath to save us? You risked your ship for us, Neela said quietly, speaking for the first time since boarding. Her patterns were the same violet gold as her sister's. This is what crew does. You said it yourself. Christine looked away. Paul's hand stilled on his console. How long can you last in there? Jake asked. Unknown? Perhaps long enough. Perhaps. The word hung in the air like smoke. Kira, it's burning again, Neela said. The next pulse is coming. Jake made his decision. Get to the reactor room. Now. The reactor compartment's door groaned as it slid open, its mechanisms running on the last dregs of backup power. Beyond the threshold, red emergency lights painted everything the color of warning. Radiation warning symbols covered every surface, faded, but still legible, still terrifying. Kira stepped through first. Neela hesitated at the entrance, her patterns flickering between violet gold and pale yellow fear. You don't have to do this, Jake said one last time. Nyla looked at him with eyes that reflected the crimson light. Yes, we do. For the first time since our world burned, we have somewhere we belong. We won't let the creche take that from us again. The door sealed behind them with a hiss of finality. Jake returned to the bridge as Paul guided the Defiant deeper into the asteroid field. The ship drifted past chunks of rock the size of cities, each one a potential collision that could end them without warning. But Paul's hands were steady, adjusting their trajectory with microscopic thruster burns. Creche Patrol is still closing, Christine reported. 1 million kilometers, but their search pattern is widening. The scattered signal is confusing them. Air supply? Jake asked. 2 hours? 40 minutes. Not enough. Still not enough. Jake opened the comm to engineering. Marcus status on the ice extraction plan. I've got 3 EVA suits prepped. Chief Harper, Navigator, Chen, and myself. We'll take turns chipping ice while the others conserve oxygen inside. I'm coming with you. Besides, I don't trust anyone else to keep this boat from smashing into a rock while we're outside. Jake wanted to argue, but Marcus was right. Fine, but you work in shifts. Nobody stays out longer than 20 minutes. Roger that. Heading to the airlock now. The next hour blurred into a nightmare of waiting. Jake monitored the Kresh Patrol's movements while his crew worked in the freezing void outside, using plasma cutters on emergency power to crack open ice-rich asteroids. The vapor would flash freeze, and they'd manually collect it in their suits' reserve tanks. Primitive, desperate, human. Every few minutes, Jake checked the reactor compartment's external sensors. Radiation levels were climbing. Kira and Neela's life signs showed on the medical scanner, growing weaker with each pulse of their biological markers. Another hour of air secured, Marcus reported after the third extraction run. His voice sounded exhausted. But Commander, we can't keep this up. The Kresh are getting too close. As if summoning them, Paul's voice cut through. They've changed formation. All three ships are converging on our sector. Distance, 400,000 kilometers. Jake's blood went cold. They've found us. Not exactly. They're bracketing a search grid. We're at the edge of it. But in 10 minutes, they'll be close enough for visual scans. The asteroids won't hide us then. Christine slammed her fist against her dead console. We need weapons. We need shields. We need something other than rocks and prayers. Jake stared at the scanner. 3 Kresh ships, his crew exhausted. 2 Varani girls dying slowly in a radiation chamber. And absolutely no way to fight. His mind raced through tactical training. Every scenario. Every trick, every desperate gambit that might buy them minutes. Then he saw it. Paul, the asteroid we just mined. How unstable is it after we cracked it open? Very. We fractured the internal structure. It's basically a pile of rubble held together by its own weak gravity. And if something hit it hard enough, Paul's eyes widened, it would shatter, create a debris cloud that would... Oh, that's either brilliant or suicidal. Marcus, those emergency thruster packs you used for the EVA. How many do we have left? Why? Can you rig them to a proximity trigger? Turn them into improvised mines? The engineer was quiet for 3 seconds. Yes, but Commander, those thrusters aren't weapons. They'd barely scratch a Kresh hull. I don't need them to scratch anything. I need them to push. Paul, plot me a course. I want that fractured asteroid between us and the Kresh. Then I want Marcus's thruster packs positioned to hit it from multiple angles simultaneously. You want to throw a mountain at them? Christine said, and for the first time since the crisis began, she smiled. That's the most human thing I've heard all day. Marcus was already moving. Give me 15 minutes. I'll magnetize the thruster packs to the asteroid's surface and slave them to a remote detonator. You've got 10. The crew moved with renewed purpose. Paul adjusted their drift, using gravity assists from nearby asteroids to position them perfectly. Marcus and Christine evaed to the fractured asteroid, placing the improvised charges with precision born of desperation. Jake opened the comm to the reactor room. Kira, Neela, status. Kira's voice came through weak but determined. We're still here. The radiation is unpleasant, but the markers are scattering properly. Can you see it working? We can. You're saving our lives? Then we die well. Nobody's dying today. Hold on just a little longer. The Kresh ships entered visual range. Their hulls were organic-looking things, all curves and sharp angles, like insects evolved for killing. Weapons ports glowed with charged energy. They moved in perfect formation, scanning, searching, hungry for the prey their markers promised was near. "Charges set," Marcus reported. "I'm back inside." "Sealing airlock now," Paul confirmed trajectory. "Asteroid will be in position in 60 seconds. Crash ships will pass within 50,000 kilometers of it. So close. Too close if this didn't work. Christine, target lock on the charges. The moment they're in optimal position, you detonate." "Con-target lock without sensors, Commander." "Then use your eyes and your best guess." She laughed, actually laughed. "Aye, sir. Eyes and guessing, the foundation of human military excellence." The crush ships drew closer, their scans intensified, sweeping through the asteroid field like searchlights in fog. 45 seconds. Jake watched them approach. 3 apex predators who'd destroyed worlds, who'd enslaved species, who decided that Kira and Neela's entire civilization deserved extinction. 30 seconds? They didn't know what humanity was. Not really. They'd seen humans run, seen them hide, seen them scatter like every other species facing annihilation. 15 seconds. They'd never seen humans cornered. Now, Christine. She pressed the detonator. 6 thruster packs ignited simultaneously across the fractured asteroid's surface. The explosion wasn't dramatic. No fireball, no shock wave, just 6 points of focused thrust pushing against a mountain that was already falling apart. The asteroid didn't so much shatter as disintegrate. Millions of tons of rock and ice exploded outward in every direction, each fragment becoming a projectile moving at different velocities. The debris cloud expanded like a stone thrown into still water, ripples of destruction spreading through space. The lead crush ship had no time to react. One moment it was gliding through empty space, sensors focused on tracking the Barani marker. The next, it was engulfed in a storm of stone moving at orbital velocities. Smaller fragments sparked off its shields. Larger chunks punched through. A piece of ice the size of a transport vehicle struck the ship's midsection with the force of an artillery shell. The hull buckled. Atmosphere vented in glittering streams. The ship tumbled, its formation broken, its weapons offline. The second Kresh ship tried to evade. It fired thrusters, banking hard to port. But it was like trying to dodge rain. A boulder fragment clipped its port engine. The drive core detonated in a silent flash of blue-white energy. The third ship fared better. Its commander saw the danger and reversed thrust, backing away from the expanding debris field. But that put distance between the hunters and their prey. Bought precious minutes. "They're repositioning," Paul reported, his voice electric with adrenaline. "But the debris cloud is massive. It'll take them at least 30 minutes to navigate around it safely." Jake sagged in his chair. 30 minutes. They'd bought 30 minutes with nothing but rocks and audacity. "Damage to Kresh forces?" he asked. Christine studied the passive sensors. "Lead ship is crippled, life support failing, second ship is debris. Third ship is intact but cautious. They're not going to rush us again." "Then we use the time." "Marcus, how's our air situation?" "We're at 90 minutes and counting. The ice extraction is keeping us alive, but barely. We need a real solution, Commander." Jake knew what that meant. They needed rescue, but broadcasting a distress signal would reveal their position to every Kresh ship in range. And with Kira and Neela aboard, that meant painting a target on their hull. Unless... "Paul, are we deep enough in the asteroid field that terrain would block a tight beam transmission?" "Depends on the direction." "What did you have in mind?" "Human ships. There has to be a fleet element somewhere in this sector. If we can get a message out without it scattering to the Kresh, I can try. But our comm array took heavy damage from the EMP. Range will be limited." "How limited?" "Maybe a few light hours." And that's optimistic. A few light hours. In the vastness of space, It was nothing, a whisper in a hurricane, but it was all they had. Do it. Send continuous distress, maximum compression, minimum power. And Paul, tell them what we're carrying. Tell them about Kira and Neela. I want whoever responds to know exactly what they're getting into. Paul's hands moved across his barely functional console. Message broadcasting. If anyone's listening, they'll hear us. The minutes crawled past. Jake divided his attention between the surviving Kresh ship and the reactor compartment's medical readouts. Kira and Nyla's vital signs were deteriorating. The radiation was killing them by degrees. Commander, Marcus said quietly, they can't survive much longer in there. Another hour? Maybe. Then the radiation will cause catastrophic organ failure. Can we shield the compartment? Reinforce it somehow? Not without power. And even if we could, we'd need specialized medical equipment to treat radiation poisoning. Equipment we don't have. Jake felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders like a physical thing. He'd saved them from the station. Saved them from the Kresh fighters. Saved them from the patrol ships. And now they were going to die anyway, slowly poisoned, while saving his crew. The unfairness of it made him want to scream. Incoming transmission, Paul said suddenly. Human frequency. It's the carrier Valkyrie. They're 3 light hours out. They received our distress. Hope surged through the bridge like electricity. Response time? Jake demanded. At maximum burn, they could reach us in 6 hours. 6 hours they had 90 minutes of air. Kira and Nyla had maybe 2 hours before the radiation killed them. The math was brutal and simple. Tell them to hurry, Jake said quietly. Commander, there's more. The Valkyrie's captain wants to speak with you directly. Audio only. Patching through now, the speaker crackled. A woman's voice filled the bridge, crisp and authoritative. Defiant. This is Captain Elizabeth Warren of the Valkyrie. We received your distress and are en route at maximum speed. But I need to confirm your message. You're sheltering 2 Varani refugees? The species with the Kresh biological marker? Jake straightened. Confirmed. They're crew now. Non-negotiable. A pause. Jake could almost hear the calculations happening on the other end. The risk assessment. The political considerations. The easy decision to turn around and leave them. Then Captain Warren spoke again, and her voice carried something Jake hadn't expected. Pride. It's about damn time someone did the right thing. Defiant. We're coming for all of you. Hold your position and stay alive. Humanity doesn't leave its own behind. Not anymore. The transmission ended. Christine looked at Jake with something like wonder. She called them crew. She called them ours. They are, Jake said simply. The bridge fell silent, except for the steady ping of Paul's distress beacon and the quiet hum of failing life support. Outside, the 3rd Kresh ship circled like a shark, waiting for its moment. Inside the reactor compartment, 2 alien girls endured agony to protect the humans who'd chosen them. And somewhere in the dark between stars, a human carrier burned hard toward an impossible rescue because a commander had decided that mercy mattered more than survival. Jake opened the comm to the reactor room one more time. Kira! Help is coming. You just need to hold on a little longer. Kira's voice came through barely above a whisper, her words slurred with pain and radiation sickness. We'll hold, Commander. We're crew. Crew doesn't quit. Jake closed his eyes. No, we don't. The next 5 hours were the longest of Jake's life. Every minute felt like an hour. Every hour felt like a lifetime. The crew worked in rotation, taking turns with the EVA ice extraction while watching the Kresh ship prowl the debris field's edge, waiting, hunting. Air reserves climbed to 2 hours, then dropped to 90 minutes, as the work exhausted their oxygen faster than they could replenish it. Marcus pushed the equipment beyond its limits. Christine and Paul took ships outside until their hands shook from cold and fatigue. But they kept going because stopping meant death. In the reactor compartment, Kira and Neela's life signs fell steadily. Jake monitored the medical readouts obsessively, watching the numbers decline like a countdown he couldn't stop. Their bioluminescent patterns had faded to almost nothing, according to the internal cameras. Two dim shapes huddled together in the red emergency light, holding each other as radiation slowly destroyed them from the inside. "Kira, talk to me," Jake said into the comm every 30 minutes, making sure they were still conscious, still alive. Each time, her response came slower, weaker. "Still here, Commander." Then, with 4 hours gone and hope wearing thin, Paul's console chirped, "Contact, human signatures, multiple ships." The Valkyrie task force just dropped out of FTL. Distance, 200,000 kilometers and closing fast. Jake felt something unlock in his chest. How many ships? The carrier plus 4 destroyers and 2 frigates. "That's not a rescue mission, Commander. That's a battle group." The comm crackled. Captain Warren's voice filled the bridge again. "Defiant, we have you on sensors. Sit tight. We're going to make this quick." Through the viewport, Jake watched the Kresh ship react to the new arrivals. It turned, weapons charging, preparing to fight or flee. It did neither. The human destroyers opened fire simultaneously. Railgun rounds crossed 200,000 kilometers in seconds. The Kresh ship's shields flared, held for a moment, then shattered. The second volley punched through the hull. Atmosphere vented. Internal explosions rippled through the organic structure. The Kresh ship died without firing a shot. "Threat eliminated," Captain Warren announced. "Defiant, we're moving in. Prepare to receive emergency atmosphere transfer and medical teams." 20 minutes later, the Valkyrie shuttle base swallowed the Defiant whole. Emergency crews swarmed the ship before the airlock even finished cycling. Medics rushed past Jake toward the reactor compartment. Engineers began emergency power restoration. Jake followed the medical team, his legs unsteady after hours of tension. They reached the reactor room as the door groaned open. Radiation alarms screamed. The medics hesitated at the threshold. "Get them out," Jake ordered. 2 medics in protective gear entered. They emerged moments later carrying Kira and Neela on stretchers. Both Varani were unconscious. Their bioluminescent patterns had gone completely dark. Their breathing was shallow and irregular. "Severe radiation poisoning," the lead medic reported. "Cellular damage across multiple organ systems. We need to get them to medical immediately." "Will they survive?" Jake asked. The medic met his eyes. "I don't know. We've never treated Varani before. We're going to do everything we can." They rushed the stretchers away. Jake stood alone in the corridor, exhaustion finally catching up to him. His crew had survived. His ship had survived. But Kira and Neela, the 2 girls nobody wanted, the ones who'd sacrificed everything to save strangers, Commander Morrison. Jake turned to find Captain Warren approaching. She was younger than her voice suggested, maybe 40. With sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Captain," Jake managed, "hell of a stand you made out there, throwing asteroids at Kresh ships with nothing but thruster packs. That'll be in the tactical manuals for years. Just trying to stay alive, ma'am." "No." Warren's expression hardened. "You were doing more than that. You were making a statement. The whole sector heard your distress call, Commander. Every word. Human ships, Kresh ships, even neutral parties. They all heard you broadcasting that you were protecting 2 Varani refugees, that you considered them crew, Jake felt suddenly exposed. "I didn't think about the politics, ma'am. You did exactly right. Do you know how many times in the past 6 months we've encountered refugees being turned away, civilians left to die because nobody wanted the risk? I've had to follow those orders myself. Stand by and watch while scared people got rejected by ship after ship." Warren's voice carried old anger. "But you didn't follow orders. You didn't calculate the risk. You just did what was right. And you survived because of it. The Varani might not survive. Then we'll mourn them as crew, as humans, as family." Warren placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. "Win or lose, you changed something today. You reminded people what we're supposed to be fighting for." 3 days later, Jake stood in the Valkyrie's medical bay, watching Kira and Nyla sleep. The doctors had worked miracles, experimental treatments, improvised solutions, the kind of desperate innovation that humans excelled at when people they cared about were dying. The Varani sisters would live, scarred, changed, but alive. Kira's eyes opened. Her bioluminescent patterns flickered weakly, cycling through colors before settling on soft blue. "Commander," she whispered. "Hey, how do you feel?" "Like I was bathed in a star, but alive." "Nella?" "Recovering. The doctors say you'll both make full recoveries. Eventually." Kira's patterns shifted to violet gold, the color Jake now recognized as gratitude mixed with determination. "What happens now?" she asked. Jake smiled. "Now? Now you heal. Then you decide. The Valkyrie is heading to New Terra, a human colony that's accepting refugees. You could start over there, build new lives, or..." He paused. "Or you could stay with the Defiant. We could use good crew members, ones who know how to survive impossible situations." Kira closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her face, catching the medical bay's light. "Nobody wanted us," she said quietly. "Our world burned. Every ship turned us away. We thought we would die alone and forgotten. Just 2 more casualties in a war that's already killed billions. But you saw something in us, something worth saving, worth fighting for, worth dying for." Her eyes opened again, blazing with life. "We would be honored to serve with the Defiant Commander. To be crew, to be human, even if we're not human." Jake felt his throat tighten. "Humanity isn't a species, Kira. It's a choice. And you made that choice when you walked into a reactor room to save people you barely knew. Welcome to the crew, both of you." 3 weeks later, the Defiant left the Valkyrie's repair docks. New shields, new weapons, new engines, and 2 very unusual crew members who'd proven that courage, sacrifice, and loyalty weren't human traits. They were universal ones. Jake stood on his bridge watching the stars streak past as they jumped to FTL. His crew worked around him. Marcus in engineering, Paul at navigation, Christine at weapons. And in the science station, newly created for them, Kira and Neela monitored sensors. Their bioluminescent patterns pulsed in rhythm with the ship's systems, violet, gold, and bright. Nobody wanted them, but one human saw something special, and that made all the difference.